Hey everyone, Rob B here with Rob D, and you are listening to one of my favourite episodes of the entire year of the Property Podcast. Rob and I bring together our favourite resources. We've got books, podcasts, apps, life hacks. We've got the lot in this week's episode to make you a better property investor and a better person.
Welcome to the Property Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We spend our time advising a multi-million pound property fund, which you can find out more about at portfolio.co.uk, and putting together hundreds of transactions every year for our clients. And we bring you the property knowledge that we've gained along the way for free in this show. But around all that, we do manage to squeeze in time for reading, watching things on YouTube, and generally messing around with technology. So do stick around because we've got some great recommendations coming right up.
So let's kick off with our news story of the week, and this week's headline is a worrying one if you are renting because its high-rise mortgage costs see surge in rents across the UK.
Rob, I am renting and my rent has gone up dramatically. I'm currently in the process of negotiating it. So this story has struck a nerve, but the news story is not Rob's expenses have gone up. The story is more broadly about rents. It's making the point generally that rents are up dramatically. Some of the highest rental growth is in cities with London, Manchester and Birmingham in particular having really huge increases over the last year, and don't I know it. But the point that I wanted to bring up, Rob, is there's a really interesting stat in the middle of this article, which is that the number of people renting a property alone rose by over 500,000 in 2020 to 21, which I just thought was fascinating. And obviously you don't know why it's happened. They're hypothesizing that it's because people are working from home more. And obviously before you might have lived with a housemate, but now it's easier to work from home if you're living alone. Maybe you've got a spare room to work for. So if you can afford to do that, that's what you do. But I just thought that was such a striking sort of change in the patterns of demand. We've always known that one beds were popular, more popular than people think. Now they're even more popular.
It's really interesting you say that because with Property Hub Invest, when we do a launch, if we have apartments, we'll have a mix of one beds, two beds, and sometimes three beds. And two beds are always the most popular. But why that's interesting to me is that it's more on emotion rather than facts. And people just assume that two beds are better. And they're not always. And I've seen one beds rent a lot faster in certain developments than two beds. And I've seen that many times over. I've not looked into this story in any detail whatsoever, but I do wonder if this is contributing to the undersupply of rental properties out there as well. Places like Manchester and Derby, there just isn't enough good rental stock out there, and there's a huge demand, and people are clamouring for stock that comes onto the market. And this trend might be contributing to that because previously few people might have lived in a home together, and now those people all want their individual apartments. I don't know. It seems to make sense to me.
I think that's probably right. I've been kind of fascinated for a while about why there is such a shortage. And it seems like there's suddenly such a shortage because obviously people say that we've been underbuilding for years. But why has this suddenly become an issue in the last couple of years? And even if you go, oh, well, landlords are selling up, that's why. Well, they can only be selling to another landlord or someone who otherwise would have been renting. So it doesn't make homes disappear. I think one piece of the picture which I wasn't aware of is immigration. I didn't realise until literally the last few weeks that this year has been a really big one for immigration, really big numbers, even though a larger proportion of that is coming from outside the EU for obvious reasons. So that's one driver. But this, I'm pretty sure, is another one. We're basing this off one stat and one observation, so it's not like deep analysis has gone into it. But in city centres in particular, I can see this being a big factor. So an interesting one to keep an eye on as we look into what rents may do next year, but also possibly an interesting one when it comes to making investment decisions.
Before we kick off with this awesome episode, let's just give you an extra Christmas gift idea. Because as property lovers, you may want to give the gift of property to others. And you can through the wonderful Property Hub magazine. If you'd like to gift a subscription to somebody else because it's such a wonderful, wonderful magazine, well, we've got you covered. Go to propertyhub.net/gift and you can sign somebody else up as a subscriber. If they have a remote interest in property investment, they thought about becoming a property investor, why not help them? Give them a link to the podcast and then beyond that, buy them a subscription. So next year they can make the moves they want to in the world of property investment. So if you'd like to give possibly the greatest gift this year, which is the Property Hub magazine, go to propertyhub.net/gift. And if you're not a magazine subscriber, well, treat yourself. It is Christmas after all. Go to propertyhub.net/magazine and sign up there.
Right, let's get into it. This truly is the most wonderful time of the year. I love doing this episode because I always pick up great recommendations. You'd have thought that we'd share everything between us throughout the year, seeing as we talk so much. But no, there is always more. So we're going to be running through books, podcasts, YouTube and TV, and tech and life hacks. Rob, let's start with books, shall we? And I think you've had a better book year than I have, so you should probably start.
Well, you say that because my list is a little longer than yours, but actually, I have read a lot of books this year, more than I have in previous years, which I'm really happy about. I've got into that habit of getting through books. And I talked about in a podcast earlier this year how I've changed my approach to reading. And that approach I've taken is from Naval Ravikant. And he's a investor, an entrepreneur, a bit of a thought leader, puts loads and loads of interesting stuff out there. But one of the things he said was, don't feel like you have to finish a book. If you've started a book and you're finding it hard work, then give it up or skip a few chapters and see if you can start to enjoy it again. And if not, then give it up. And that, as basic as it sounds, really, really transformed my framing of how I approach reading. Because I would get to a book and then I would punish myself through that book until I finished it and would not allow myself to pick up another one. So I've changed. And because of that, I've got through a lot more books. And some books I stopped because they were rubbish. And I've read a lot of rubbish books this year, or mediocre. And some books I've absolutely loved. I may have not gotten to those books if I hadn't adapted that approach. The first book I'm going to recommend is a fascinating story. It's about the company Wirecard. Now, if that sounds familiar, it got a lot of press a few years ago because it was a company worth billions that went to zero. And that's because what the company was doing was fraudulent. I don't want to give too much away. I don't think it's a spoiler to say the company doesn't exist anymore. That's why I bought the book. It's by Dan McCrum. And Dan is a writer for the FT. And he's done an incredible job. He was behind this story. So there's no better person to tell this story because he was trying to expose Wirecard. And they tried to suppress him and his story and intimidate him and others from telling that story. The stories of corruption, greed, lots of criminality. It's a really fascinating book. And the fact it's a true story is absolutely bonkers. So that's Money Men by Dan McCrum.
By January 2019, I had spent 2 months cloistered in a bunker to one side of the Financial Times newsroom. I'd worked off the grid, beyond the reach of online hackers. And each night my air-gapped computer and notebooks had gone into a safe with steel walls 6 inches thick. The paranoia I took home with me, eyeing fellow commuters with suspicion, alert for signs of the surveillance I knew my sources were under.
I've got that next on my list, actually, since you recommended it recently. I'm so looking forward to that. I love that type of book, that kind of investigative journalism / scandalous company collapse type stuff. So it couldn't be more up my street. Looking forward to that one. The first one on my list is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. I think I mentioned this as a hub extra earlier in the year. 4,000 weeks is the length of an average human lifespan. That's where the title comes from. And it's basically, I suppose, an anti-productivity book. So it's broadly about not trying to pack in more and more and more and using all these hacks to squeeze more productivity out of your day. It's about acknowledging that you'll never get everything done and you have limited time and becoming okay with that. And I've always been very much on the productivity train, and I've always been very aware of the passing of time and not wanting to get older and not wanting time to pass and things like that. So I actually found this book really helpful, and it's a really short book as well, which I appreciated. It's one of those that could easily have been 3 times the length with a bit of padding, but because it's brief, it's actually more powerful for that. So this is one that I actually read as a book, but I'm planning to re-listen to it on audio soon, because it's one of those where you've taken the message, you agree with it, and then you completely fail to implement it into your life or do anything with it. So you need to be reminded every so often. But for me, 4,000 Weeks was the best book I read this year.
Good luck finding a time management system that makes any room for engaging productively with your fellow citizens, with current events, or with the fate of the environment. At the very least, you might have assumed there'd be a handful of productivity books that take seriously the stark facts about the shortness of life, instead of pretending that we can just ignore the subject. But you'd be wrong. So this book is an attempt to help redress the balance, to see if we can't discover, or recover, some ways of thinking about time that do justice to our real situation, to the outrageous brevity and shimmering possibilities of our 4,000 weeks.
That sounds like the type of book I'd like to kick my new year off, Rob. So, Oliver, you've got yourself another sale. And probably a few more after people listen to this. My next book is my favourite business book of the year. And actually, I read quite a few business books this year. Some okay ones, a lot of rubbish ones, but this one felt new. And again, Rob, it wasn't overdone. It could have been a much longer book. And I think, Rob, because the guy who wrote it, Frank Slootman, has run businesses before, he probably didn't want to waste time padding a book out. He's actually run multiple businesses before, been incredibly successful in his career, and then he's put those lessons in a book. This book I'm purchasing for our entire leadership team. It's had that much of an impact on me, and I feel it'll have a similar impact on the people in Portfolio and Property Hub. That's how much I like it. A big thank you to Gautam, the CEO of Perkbox, who recommended this book to me. He's recommended some great resources to me over the year. When he tells me to buy a book, I buy it the same day. And if you run a business, even in a leadership position or as an entrepreneur, I highly recommend Amp It Up. It's a great book.
My goal for this book is to provide not merely tactical advice, but also context and ways of thinking about situations. You can try these ideas on for size and see if they fit. I'm not on a mission to convince the world to agree with me. If you choose not to amp it up, that's up to you. But I believe the chapters ahead will help you stiffen your spine and fight the good fight, not just if you're a CEO, but if you're a leader at any level, whether at a startup, a big company, or a nonprofit. I also believe you can only get these insights from a fellow traveler. No offense to my VC friends, but they often think that their investments give them the right to lecture entrepreneurs at board meetings, even though many VCs have never been in the combat seat themselves.
That's great. I haven't read a really impactful business book for such a long time. And I find it hard to be motivated to pick them up now because, like you said, so many of them are just kind of average. So excited to get into a really good new one. Okay, my next pick is The 2-Hour Cocktail Party by Nick Gray. This is a book that tells you how to throw a 2-hour cocktail party. And basically, Nick Gray is a guy, he had a business called Museum Hack. He sold it for a decent amount of money. And since then, he's just been doing interesting stuff. I just kind of describe him as like a professional, interesting person. And if you follow him on Instagram, he's always just doing mad stuff. And one of the things that he's done over the years is hosted a lot of parties. And he's developed this formula for hosting a party that's got features that make it really easy to do. So you don't have the excuse of, oh, it's going to be really hard. I'm going to have to cook dinner for everyone and all this stuff. And it's also got certain features in it that enable people to mingle and make connections and just make it successful. And one of those, as the title suggests, is that it lasts for 2 hours. So the party has a finish time. And for me, I love this because, as you know, Rob, I have an end time. However long the event is, I'm probably leaving after about 2 hours anyway. So having this 2 hour limit means that you end it on a high. It doesn't just fizzle out. It means people are more likely to say that they'll come because it doesn't feel like such a commitment. And it means people turn up on time because if you're late, you missed half of it. So the formula makes total sense. And Rob, I can exclusively reveal that I've hosted a 2 hour cocktail party and it was great. It was really, really good. And the formula works perfectly. I just followed the book and it was really easy and really fun. So I would absolutely recommend this to anyone, especially if you're not the kind of person who would normally host a party, because I'm absolutely not, but I really enjoyed it.
When was the last time you made a new friend? Maybe you do the same things with the same people every weekend. What else are you going to do? Maybe you've accepted the mindset of, I'm getting older. That's just how it is. But another way to think is, I'm getting older. Now's the best time to make a few new meaningful relationships. It's never too late to make new friends. There are people out there just like you. Awesome, smart, motivated people who are a little lonely after work. Or they're bored of their same routine. They want to meet new people too.
My third and final book of the year, I was kind of not tempted to put this in because the other two I would rate out 5 out of 5. Born a Crime I would give 4 out of 5 because it kind of dragged in the middle. However, I think there was enough good stuff in there and enough good messages, and I learnt a lot from that book and was inspired at parts as well. That means that I had to put it in. Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah apparently is a comedian famous in America, hosts talk shows, things like that. I had never heard of him. And people might be listening to this going, what? How have you never heard of him? But that's me. Hadn't heard of him. I listened to it, and I highly recommend that you listen to it because Trevor narrates it himself. And it's his story of growing up in the apartheid in South Africa. I thought I knew what the apartheid was before I listened to this book. And if I wrote it down in the test, I probably would have got a tick for describing it. But what I realised is that I did not know anything. And going through someone's experience of growing up in that environment was fascinating and horrifying as well, to think that it's something that existed in our lifetimes. Like, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. So a really good book, a great ending as well, and that's why it makes the list. I really enjoyed the ending. So for the entertainment, because he is a comedian, there are moments where you will laugh out loud. An insight into a just wacky period of history that I can't even believe was in the last 50 years. And to come away a bit inspired, I think did enough to make my list. So if that sounds appealing to you, that's Born a Crime by Trevor Noah.
The genius of apartheid was convincing people who were the overwhelming majority to turn on each other. Apartheid is what it was. You separate people into groups and make them hate one another, so you can run them all. At the time, black South Africans outnumbered white South Africans nearly 5-1, yet they were divided into different tribes with different languages. Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana, Sotho, Venda, Ndebele, Tsonga, Pedi, and more.
That sounds like another winner to me. All right, that's books. Gosh, it's going to be a long episode. These always end up being long episodes because we've got so much to share. There's so much more to come. But let's move on to podcasts. Rob, your list starts with My First Million. I didn't put it on my list because I knew you would. We must have talked about this on the show before, but everyone should listen to My First Million. I just love it so much.
Yeah, it's jointly our favourite podcast. It's two guys in America who've both exited businesses and kind of dabble around with new businesses and invest and just talk about what's on their mind. And what's on their mind is stuff that interests us. It might not be for everyone, but if you're interested in interesting trends, business, entrepreneurship, and a lot more, then that could be your second favourite podcast. I think we also mentioned it last year, so I won't say any more, but My First Million, great podcast to listen to.
We're doing a crazy AI tool. But my favorite new AI thing, kind of mind-blowing. Sam, you got to admit, that was pretty mind-blowing, correct?
It was awesome. I just signed up for the waiting list, and I hope they'll actually let me on, but it's amazing.
So this one's mind-bending. We also talked about arbitrages. So kind of like money-making arbitrage schemes that either us or our friends have done. That was a little fun one. What else did we do?
We talked about setting goals. So what the new year is going to happen in like 4 weeks. So we think you should start your goals immediately. And we talked about our categories for goals. And then we also talked about Twitter. So there's a bunch of drama going on with Twitter, with Pipe happening, this company that's potentially going to go bankrupt, and a few other things happening in our lives about getting fights on Twitter and whether we should react or not. It's kind of gossipy, but I love that.
Yep, I love it. Another one that I've been enjoying this year is Infinite Loops by Jim O'Shaughnessy. I'm pretty sure was a listener recommendation, so thank you to you if you did recommend this to me. So Jim O'Shaughnessy was the founder of a big wealth management firm. So he's an investor, very well respected in his own right, has written a lot of books. But now I think he's in his 60s. He's, I suppose, semi-retired. He's super connected. He knows just about everyone. And on this show, he just gets really interesting people on. So it's an interview show, and there are a million interview shows, obviously. But he gets really interesting guests, and what makes them great is that he is just so enthusiastic and so curious that they're just so much fun because he's clearly taking so much joy in the conversation, and that's what I love about it. And it's with an investing slant because that's his background, but they kind of use that as a way of getting into lots of various topics as well. So this is one of those shows where I'll just go out and pick out random episodes, even if it's some guest who I've never heard of before, because I just know it'll be a good conversation and I'll learn something. The Infinite Loops is one that I've been really enjoying this year.
Sometimes we get caught up in what feel like infinite loops when trying to figure things out. Markets go up and down, research is presented and then refuted, and we find ourselves right back where we started. The goal of this podcast is to learn how we can reset our thinking on issues that hopefully leaves us with a better understanding as to why we think the way we think and how we might be able to change that to avoid going in infinite loops of thought. We hope to offer our listeners a fresh perspective on a variety of issues and look at them through a multifaceted lens, including history, philosophy, art, science, linguistics, and yes, also through quantitative analysis.
Next on my list is The Economist Editor Picks, and I've mentioned this on the podcast quite recently, actually, but it's a great podcast. Each week they pick the most interesting articles from The Economist and then play them back, obviously, through audio on this pod. And I love this because I previously subscribed to The Economist but had to cancel the subscription because they just came too frequently and they were piling up and I wasn't actually reading them. I love this because it just picks out the very best ones. I can listen to them on the go, and it's free as well. What a great resource. So Editor Picks by The Economist makes my list.
Our cover story this week focuses on the unrest in China and what it says about the future of Xi Jinping's zero-COVID policy. At first, the policy saved lives, but in a world with plenty of vaccines and antivirals, its benefits are no longer accruing, and China is ill-prepared against an endemic virus that is becoming harder to control.
Next on my list, Business Made Simple. So this is hosted by Donald Miller. Donald Miller started out as a writer. So he wrote A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, which I'm pretty sure, Rob, you've had as one of your favourite books on this show in the past.
I did, yeah. That was one of my top books in a previous year.
Yeah, so then he started moving into business, and so he did a book called Building a Story Brand about the power of story in business, which was really great. I enjoyed that one. And now he's a business coach, and that's what he does. But he's got this podcast called Business Made Simple, which is another one that was recommended to me. I think it was Greg who recommended this one. So thank you, Greg, if I've got that right. But the format of this I really enjoy because he's basically doing a live coaching call. So someone will come on with a business challenge and he'll kind of talk them through how he would solve it. And the format works really well. And his insights are just great. And it's often coming at it from a marketing or sales angle. So I really enjoy it because I always come away from listening with more ideas for our business. And importantly, it's short. Short books, short podcasts. This is what I want in my life.
You got a great business, you got a great product, you got customers that love it, but you are at capacity, my friend. You cannot add any more business. What do you do to scale? Well, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about a problem that many of you have. We're going to talk about streamlining your operation and creating a factory floor of processes. Today, I'm talking with Laura Higgins. She's the founder of 3daywebsites.co, a business that designs and builds dream websites in 3 days. And my friend, she is at capacity. I want you to listen to how we take the complexity of her business, simplify it into core processes, and then talk about creating an assembly line of those processes so that she can run a lot more customers through. I think you're going to find parallels between her business and yours.
The next section of our recommendations is stuff we've watched on TV and YouTube. So we got some great stuff here. And the first one is a documentary we have both watched. So Rob, I'm really interested to get your take on this. It's the Kanye Trilogy documentary. I'm going to probably not pronounce this correctly. Genius?
I'd say so, yeah.
It's not spelled like genius, just for people listening. I'm not that dumb. It's spelled like how Kanye would say it and possibly spell it. But it's a great documentary, but not what you probably expect. It's not a success story. And if you follow the news and hear what Kanye's been up to recently, you'll know that recently he's been far from a success. He's caused a lot of controversy, got himself into a lot of trouble. But this guy is equally brilliant and tormented. And to have this documentary of watching him on the rise and fall, because it's the ongoing journey with Kanye, it was truly amazing. And I just can't believe that this was documented, Rob, and what a story.
Yeah, it's incredible. So this is very focused on his early career. And there's a guy, this is kind of the most amazing bit. There's a guy who was a sort of filmmaker who just started following Kanye around when he was a nobody. Like, he was a very minor producer. He hadn't done any hits of his own yet. And this guy's just started following him. He's like, he's going to be someone and I want to be there for it. They basically started following him around full time, documenting all the meetings he went to, all his recording sessions, because he believed that Kanye was going to become a star. And he did. And as a result, you've got all this incredible footage that you just would never normally have. So I loved it. Like, putting aside Kanye today, what he was doing back then was just phenomenal. And his self-belief was just on another level. But it was self-belief backed up with talent. And being able to follow that journey, even though it must have been at least 3 hours long, probably longer across those 3 parts, I just loved it.
I would like to congratulate you on the good job that you did with me. I just started with the music. I didn't know. Yay, West, hot, fire. Yo, that's 21 years in the making. I'm not gonna say it's not a way I could fail, but hopefully with God's blessings, there shouldn't be no way for me to lose, really.
Another documentary I loved, much lighter in content, was Welcome to Wrexham. It's the story of Wrexham Football Club and a takeover by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. I can never say his name. Most people can't, though. In the series, you'll see. The Kanye documentary was on Netflix. This documentary is on Disney+. I'd highly recommend it. It's lighthearted. If you're into football, you'll really enjoy it. But even if you're not into football, I think you'd enjoy it as well, because it's about the community at the football club and the impact that this takeover has to Hollywood A-listers coming in and taking over a football club that they'd never heard of, and they admit that, and how they fall in love with that club over their first season. It's a brilliant, brilliant series. So much so that my son now wants to go and watch a Wrexham football match, which I don't mind if they're his second team, but Liverpool as number one, he has no choice.
It's an underdog story, and it's about interconnectivity between the club and the community.
Football's more than a game. It's not life and death. It's more important than that.
You're watching those games with your kids and your father, your mother, but I don't remember any specific game. I just remember watching my dad.
If they're successful, it will be the biggest day in the history of the town.
My last one is Formula One, and not Drive to Survive on Netflix, which is a great series, but actually just Formula One in general. I watched Formula One religiously with my dad when I was a boy growing up, and then just fell out of love with it. Didn't watch it, couldn't commit to it, and got on with my life. Last year, I started to watch it, and my son also started to watch it. It's funny how life repeats itself, and now together we watch it. And I feel I wanted to just recommend Formula One because the drama is incredible. The production by Sky and how they bring across the stories from the sport is absolutely incredible. I just think it's an incredible sport, and I think it's the type of sport that anybody can get into. I know a lot of people who love Formula One who you wouldn't think as sporty people, but I think now that Formula One is one of those sports that can entertain anyone, and Sky do a fantastic job of presenting it. So if you've ever watched Formula One previously or been tempted to watch it, give it a go. I think you might enjoy it. I absolutely love it now.
Through goes Hamilton! Great move from Charles Leclerc. That was very close indeed. This is absolutely epic. But once again, Leclerc's got the DRS. This time he's got the inside line. Leclerc, for the second lap running, has retaken the lead and has come out of turn 4 ahead. This is absolutely epic.
All right, so that was TV. I didn't contribute anything to TV because I was like, I can't just recommend Below Deck again. So that's all I've watched. But we have watched some stuff on YouTube, as have you, Rob. So shall we just do a super quick run through of a few random YouTube channels we've enjoyed? Because I think it's fair to say our YouTube watching patterns are pretty random.
Yeah, let's do it, Rob. What are you going to kick us off with?
Okay, so I'll kick off with Jeff Nippard. So this is to do with fitness and strength training. This for me is just a perfect example of how incredible YouTube is. The quality of this guy's stuff. He basically reads scientific papers and uses those to figure out how you should be training. So there's obviously in this world a lot of opinion, and that's all over YouTube. But he takes a scientific approach. So basically he goes and reads all this stuff, breaks it down, and puts it out in such a super high production values way. The effort that goes into it must be extreme, and you get to watch it for free. It's unbelievable.
Well, he's just added to his 3.5 million subscribers. I've subscribed. On a similar note, I'm going to recommend Nick Bear. Nick Bear was a Marine, and he started his own supplements business and fitness and lifestyle business, and that's done incredibly well. And he documents that journey, but he also documents his fitness journey, and he goes on different challenges. So it could be running a marathon in a certain amount of time or building up to a certain amount of bulk. But the production quality of what he does is absolutely brilliant. Again, Rob, it's like watching a TV show, but it's on YouTube. And it's his videos, this guy. And yes, he does have a videographer who follows him around and he does all this stuff. But the quality of the stuff he does is absolutely sensational. I love watching his episodes. And whatever my mindset is going into watching a video, I always come out more motivated and inspired as well. He's also very likeable. So I'd highly recommend checking out Nick Bear's YouTube channel. And Rob, I believe you're a subscriber as well.
Yeah, I do. It is incredible quality. It's like mini documentaries every week. But I kind of hate this guy because he's massive and in great shape. He's training for strength and training for marathons at the same time most of the time. And he's running this really big business. And my excuse for why I wasn't doing this is but he doesn't have kids, does he? Then he had a kid and he's still doing it. And it's just damn you, Nick Bear. But even though we mere mortals can't live up to him, it is great to watch. My next one, taking things in a completely different direction, is Jenny Hoyos. This is what I describe as a comedy investing channel. She does loads of YouTube shorts, which are great. She also does some long form stuff. One video is called I Took Andrew Tate's Course, so you don't have to. Another is called I Gave My Dog $10,000 to trade stocks. And she is just so funny. So you're not going to learn anything with his channel, but you are going to be entertained. The production of it is great, but she is also just so naturally funny. It's brilliant.
Rob, that is a completely new one for me, so I will check her out and subscribe. Next on my list is only going to be beneficial to a few people here, and that is if you love chess, like I do, or like chess, or possibly want to get into chess, because the YouTuber I'd like to recommend is Alex Banzia. Alex is an international master. There are people out there higher ranked than him. However, his YouTube game is strong, but I actually just think he's a great teacher. The way he breaks down the lessons of his games and helps you develop as a chess player have really helped my game come on over the last 12 months. And I've been able to hit my chess goals over the last 12 months. And I'd credit a lot of it to his YouTube channel. It's really helped me come on. So I appreciate not everyone's a chess geek like me, but if you want to become a chess geek or you are a chess geek, then check out Alex's YouTube channel.
My next one is Jeff Su, spelled S-U. Jeff Su. This is another Wow YouTube is great one. So he puts out a mix of productivity and careers content. And a lot of it is tech productivity, which I really enjoy in a geeky way. And Rob, I know you love this stuff too, so you should go and subscribe to Jeff Su. So it's like tips and tricks to do things in Google Calendar that you didn't know you could do, and the best Mac apps and all that kind of thing. So I enjoy that kind of thing anyway. But this is another one where so much effort goes into it. And he's a great presenter, really naturally funny, and he makes the effort to put lots of humour and personality into everything he does. So it's not just like a boring rundown of the top 10 apps or whatever, which it could have been, and it'd be pretty good even if it was just that. But there's that layer of entertainment on top. And while I'm here, I'll just add an extra one into the mix, which is super niche, which is Film Booth. And the reason I mention it now is that this is a YouTube channel teaching you how to do better on YouTube. And it's another one where he goes to real lengths to make it story-driven and funny and entertaining. And the point that he makes by doing that is that that is how you stand out and grow subscribers and everything else. So he is his own example of that. But Jeff Su is someone else who's very much taking that template. So as we've been doing more on YouTube this year, and we're going to be doing even more next year, we're going to be trying to take on the lessons from some of these great channels, because putting in the effort really does pay off.
And our final section of resources this year are tech and lifestyle hacks. So kind of a bit of a mix here. And I'll kick us off, Rob, because this might be the biggest game changer for me this year, and also possibly the most underwhelming if you just looked at the list ahead, which you have. And my life hack number one for this year is Berocca. Yes, the vitamins tablet that you drop in, it fizzes away and you get your vitamins in every day. I promise you it's been a game changer for me. And there are other alternatives out there. And no, I'm not sponsored by them or any of the other products we've mentioned today. It's just really helped me. And I'll tell you why. Very early on this year, I was having a chat with one of my friends, and I was explaining to him how every afternoon I felt like I just wanted to fall asleep. And sometimes I did. And I used to have to take little power naps to get through my day. And I just thought working hard, building a business, having a young family, it's just kind of par for the course. It's just how it should be. But then I also remembered I was in my 30s and maybe I shouldn't be feeling like this, albeit late 30s and very late 30s now. But he stopped me and he said, I used to be the same, and I started taking vitamin tablets. And he had some with him, and we took one there and then, and there was no change that one day. You wouldn't expect it to be. But I consistently started to take Berocca day after day. And now, in the afternoons, I do not have the urge to fall asleep. Do I have my highest energy in the afternoon? No. But can I now function at a much better level than I used to? Yes. Could it be a placebo? Maybe. But if it is, who cares? It's cheap and it works.
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, thank you for reminding me that we're still in our 30s. I need to really enjoy that for the next couple of months. And secondly, that's super interesting because I always just kind of assumed that it didn't do anything and it was just a placebo. But like you say, if it is a placebo, who cares? And I actually use it as a placebo. So I've got some, but I only take it if I feel like I might be starting to get ill. If I feel like I'm starting to get ill, I'll just take one and convince myself that that's going to make me better. And most of the time it works. I often feel like, I'm going to get a cold tomorrow, and then it never happens. And I'm putting it down to the power of placebo. But now you convinced me that maybe Berocca does do something real as well, and I'm going to start trying it out. And the fact that I think probably every year in the previous one of these lists, you brought along some kind of napping or meditation app, and this year you haven't, that's the strongest proof you need.
It's true. No sleeping or meditation apps this year.
Cool. So my first one on this kind of tech and life hacks side of things is getting an Amex card. Again, no sponsorship, but I never bothered with doing airline points or anything like that. Should have done it years ago because I got a card. I was referred by a friend, so I kind of got like 30,000 points to kick it off with. And all I've done is like start using that as my card. So I've set that as my default one in Apple Pay. Set it up so the whole thing gets paid off each month, so it doesn't involve any extra effort whatsoever. And I built up an incredible amount of points in a short space of time, which is kind of scary because it means that therefore I must have spent a lot. But it's enough for me and my wife to get a free business class flight or a free stay in a really nice hotel somewhere. We won't be doing any of those things because we've got kids, but one day we could. But just the fact that you can do it with no effort means, really should have done this a long time ago. If only you could convert it into free Centre Park stays, though.
If only, Rob. I do exactly the same. I can highly recommend this. But you have to have some financial discipline, which I'm pleased to say we both have. But you clear it off every month because what you will pay in charges is ridiculous. So just treat it like a debit card, but make sure you clear the full balance every single month. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. But if you have financial discipline and you can do that, then it's absolutely brilliant. So again, highly recommend it. And actually, while we're not sponsored, if you check out the show notes for this episode, Rob will put a referral link in there, and both you and he will benefit from some points if you sign up, more than if you signed up by yourself. So check out the show notes for this week's episode, and of course, you'll have links to all the resources that we've mentioned. Next on my list is an app. It's called Fitbod, and I've really, really enjoyed this app. I don't want to work with a personal trainer following me around the gym telling me what to do. One, I don't like being told what to do, but two, when I go to the gym, it's my escape. Nobody's going to bother me. The phone signal actually in my gym is atrocious, which is great, so people can't get through to call me. And I have that hour to myself. So I don't want to work with a personal trainer. But Fitbod is like a personal trainer in the version of an app. Of course, it's not going to be as good as a personal trainer. But I've explained why I don't want one, so Fitbod for me is the next best thing. It plans my workouts, it assesses what muscle groups I've used in my previous workout, so it won't push them as hard in the next one, but it also knows how many days I've had to recover, so if I have a week off, it may then bring those muscle groups back because it knows my muscles have recovered. You can state your goals, so it can help structure the workouts that will help you meet those goals, and you can put in the amount of time you have as well, and the equipment you have available to you. So all those things combined make it a really, really clever app. Yes, you do have to pay for it, but it's not crazy. It probably costs the same as a couple of gym sessions with a PT for the whole year, which isn't bad. So if, like me, you want to be alone when you go to the gym, check out Fitbod. If you want a free version, it's not as good, but you can get some of the features I mentioned. The Gymshark app is free and there's some workouts there, but Fitbod is the premium one of the two.
Yeah, that's really cool. Just looking at it now, it looks really good. I do like working with a PT, but the main reason for it is I like being told what to do in this part of my life. A big part of the benefit is I just want someone I trust to tell me what to do so I don't have to research it and think about it and everything else because I do enough of that in other areas. But the app actually looks like quite a good way of achieving the same thing and just kind of outsourcing it to technology. Okay, so my next one is a really small and silly one, but it changes my life every day in a small way, which is I've got a spare Mac charger.
Saving the best for last day, Rob.
Yeah, I know, but bear with me. This is cool in two different ways. Firstly, is I don't know why, but Mac chargers, even though the rest of everything they do is super sleek and amazing and everything, they're bloody massive. So if you try and plug it anywhere, it doesn't fit most of the time. The other way is because I only had one, if I go and work from a different space, which I do all the time, always have to remember to take it with me and worry about whether I'm going to remember and then forget it and go, I've got to eke out my battery all afternoon. So for about 20 quid, went on Amazon, got a spare kind of off-brand one, which is much smaller, works just as well. And now, because it's small, it can stay in my bag all the time, and that stress is removed from my life. So I acknowledge that that is very specific to me. And that's not going to be a game changer for many other people listening. But it's just kind of an example of like, where do you have these tiny little kind of micro inefficiencies in your life and little bits of annoyance? And like, can you solve that with either a little bit of money or a one-off effort? There must be loads of examples of this. I think it's quite a good one to think about. Can you just catch that thing that bugs you every day and just solve it once and never have to think about it again? So that's my challenge to anyone listening today.
I love that, Rob. And yes, I think if people take the time to go through that full process, they will make changes that will benefit their lives, even if it's just in a small way, but those small things add up over time. Last one on the list to wrap this up is something that was actually invented quite a while ago, and it's called sleep.
Oh, you did fit in there. I thought we'd go through a whole one without.
Well, it's not sleeping in the afternoon, which is what I used to do, but it is sleeping at night. Because another thing I've discovered, again, stating the obvious, but really more than discovered, really focused on it, is knowing what a difference a good night's sleep makes to my mood. If I have a good night's sleep, the next day I'm happier, I'm more productive, obvious stuff, but we just kind of go to bed at night, sleep, and then feel like, oh, well, how's that worked out? And just accept it. You can do things to improve your sleep. And I do. And I've taken sleep really seriously now. So I've got a super duper deluxe eye mask, and I take it away with me wherever I go now because it's the best eye mask I've ever found. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's really good. Taking good quality magnesium in the day also helps and assists your sleep. Again, might be a placebo, but it works for me. If I wake in the night, I have meditation apps ready to go to get me back to sleep. It's just taking sleep seriously. A lot of people just do sleep because you kind of, well, that's what you do, right? But you can take sleep up a level as well. I mean, come on. The Property Podcast, you've known us for a long time now, unless you're a recent subscriber. You know we don't do things lightly. And with sleep, I've taken it seriously over the last year. And I've noticed a huge difference to my energy and to my happiness.
Well, you clearly had a good night's sleep last night, Rob, because you brought some great stuff today, and I've enjoyed this episode so much. As a parent of a 4-month-old, I feel like you're taunting me a little bit with the sleep thing, but I'll go with it. There's been so much fun, loads of recommendations in there that I'll be checking out, and as Rob said, you can find the links to everything in the show notes for this episode.
So that's us done for another week. Make sure you check out the show notes for this episode. This is one of those episodes where you definitely do want to check out the show notes. All the links are there, and if you want that Amex top-up, you can get that as well. Plus the link to the magazine, the ultimate Christmas gift this year. But don't worry, we're going to give you another gift next week when we'll be back with a podcast. And the gift is us reviewing our predictions from the beginning of the year. We do this every year because we're just a bit mad. We not only make predictions every year, but unlike pretty much everybody else, we then go back and review them to see how we've gotten on. So if you'd like to laugh at us or ridicule us, then next week is your show. So make sure you join us next Thursday for that. We'll see you then. Take care. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.